33 years ago, 30 plus years ago, I had a passion. It was a vision and a passion. I had no idea where it was going to take me. All I knew that I was in love with motor cars and motorcycles. Where I've ended up is exactly where we are today in GV Automotive, which is basically the umbrella of the business. It envelops Python choppers and Python vehicles and Python restorations and Python racing. So it's been a passion and a want for my, more to say that I love motor cars and motorcycles. So what we've got here today is an eclectic group of businesses that diversify into all sorts of different things. I've been building motorcycles most of my life. I've been building cars most of my adult life. The vision of what I wanted to create was a sports car business in Australia, something that people could come in, order a car, get a car built. Also the fact that the cars also crossed over into motorcycles, and the motorcycles was a normal progression going from 4 wheels to 2 wheels. I've always been riding bikes since I was 14. I started off with a Gemini 50cc motorcycle, which was pretty exciting back in those days. And I've progressed to what you see on the screen today with the ape-hanger Exile motorcycle with a Jenny Shovel S&S engine running 93 cubes. It's a pretty exciting bike to ride. It's a suicide shift bike, and it goes back to the old bobber style motorcycling of the heyday of motorcycling back in the 40s and 50s. So they're a pretty exciting bike to ride, and visually they're a pretty exciting bike. Anyone from a 14-year-old to a 70-year-old appreciates the bikes because of their old styling, their red wheels, their white wall tyres. The big tyres come from the World War II era of motorcycling, where the old WLAs were used in World War II for couriering messages from the front lines and doing all sorts of work in World War II. So they're a pretty exciting motorcycle. We've been doing it for a long time. We've sold different vehicles to different people. One of pride and place, we ended up building a sports car for a very, very famous Formula One driver. I really don't want to mention any names, but he's a very well-known driver who used to drive for Ferrari, and his name's actually MD2. So, you know, I mean, if you caught that, that's great. If not, hey, just live the dream and try to keep an eye on the screen and find out. Maybe you'll find out who that actual person is who owns that car. Python choppers. We've been doing that for 6 years now. We're trying to get Python choppers up and running as a motorcycle brand in this country, and I've got a good crew of guys that help us create different visions in what we want created with the bikes. So, you know, we've got Danny on board, who's a great pattern maker. I've got Romy, who's just starting out, who knows the ins and outs of the mechanical workings of engines. And we've got Lorenzo, who's basically the support of the business too, that runs GV Automotive. So we've got a good little group of guys that do what they need to do within the structure of GV Automotive, which sort of has all these different tentacles going out in the automotive industry. So it's exciting to be a part of this whole vision that I've tried to concoct in my mind. So it's quite an exciting ride. It's a roller coaster ride of ups and downs. The emotions, sometimes you're on such a high that you want to explode, and the other times the lows are quite low, and when they're low, I mean real low. It's a long haul. We live in a country that doesn't really want entrepreneurialism. It's a country that stifles entrepreneurialism.
Hey, honey,
Trying to concentrate and keep the doors open, paying our bills, and being passionate about what I do constantly. And it's quite easy to be passionate in this shop. As you can see around the area and behind me, we've got cars that are quite exciting, AC Cobra replicas that we race in the Sports Car Championship in Victoria. We've got cars that I built 30 years ago, the blue and white Python, the SR302, basically the DNA of the business. That's the car that started it all off for me. I was 20 years of age when I built that car from the backyard of my father's house in Brighton back in 1979. So that's how far back I go, and to have the fires burning in my belly for 30 years is a tough gig, but I still love it. I love the cars. I love the smell of petrol. I love the excitement that the cars and the bikes give me. Jumping on my bike on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and hitting the highways and the hills and getting into temperatures of 22 degrees on a nice sunny day in Melbourne is just an awesome experience. I'm constantly going to the United States personally. I do 4 trips a year and I keep my finger on the pulse and what's happening over there in the marketplace, what's happening at swap meets, who's building what, who's creating what, who's flavour of the month, who isn't flavour of the month, because they're the things that wash over into the Australian automotive scene, into the hot rod scene, into the bike scene, into the chopper scene, into the bobber scene. There's hundreds of scenes here, guys who run around in SS Commodores, and then there's the underground guys that run around in old bobber motorcycles built from Triumph bits or Harley Davidson bits. So the scene's quite big here. It's underground, but it's a lot bigger in the United States. The United States is the birthplace of the bobber. It's the birthplace of Harley Davidson. It's the birthplace of the muscle car. It's where it all happened. And it all exploded from the United States in the 40s and 50s and dribbled into different societies, whether it be Europe, UK, Australia. It's here to stay for a very long time. So going to the States, experiencing SEMA, experiencing Pomona swap meet and all the other swap meets, that's a buzz in itself. I mean, I can wander for hours throughout Pomona and pick up ideas from different guys and experience the stories of 60-year-old men and 70-year-old men who used to fight in World War II and got home and stripped down their dad's 32 hot rod and turned it into a high boy or illegal drag racer. Display cabinets, hey, they're sprinkled all over the shop. It's something, a bit of a fetish of mine, I suppose. I collect anything that sort of catches my eyes, particularly model cars. Been collecting the AC Cobra replica as far as a model car is for a long time, so anything that I spot in the States at a swap meet or at a barn find or something, anything interesting, I'll grab it, I'll whack it in one of our cabinets and let the general public have a bit of a wander through the shop and a sticky beak at what I've collected over the years. So there's everything from old Coke cans and Coke bottles right up to slot car AC Cobras for slot car tracks, to miniature AC Cobras, to die cast ones made out of copper and all sorts of things. So the display cabinets are pretty exciting. The rolling frames, Sucker Punch Sally again. We're back to the motorcycles again. We supply a rolling frame. It's a frame that a person can purchase and build up a bike themselves over a period of time at home. So the rollers are sort of scattered down there. We've got a couple of rollers. One roller with the red frame takes the Evolution engine, the V-twin, and the blue frame's got a 127 stroked or 127 cube engine in it. And the black frame, well, that's a frame that takes a Sportster engine. So the rollers are a derivative of the Sucker Punch Sally brand, and we have a few of those floating around. Inside the shop itself, you'll see a 56 Ford Thunderbird that we restored probably 17 years ago. That's actually quite a nice car. And then we've got an AC Cobra, which is a blue and white striped car that's been in the business for 30 years. It's the very first car that George Vidovic, myself, and Python Vehicles Australia, the man, the myth, whatever you want to call me, at the age of 20 I built that car in the backyard of my dad's home. The 54 pickup truck, a real interesting addition that was purchased from a mate of mine, Rick Walls, in Los Angeles. And we brought that back with us, and that's basically our workhorse. Got a 390 big block in it, Camaro front end with the original rear end in it, running on airbags. The matte black gives it its 50s rat rod style, and that's a real cool truck to drive. It's got no interior, no side windows, no mod cons whatsoever. Turn the key, put it in gear and drive the car. It's bells and whistles free. It hasn't got any of that sort of stuff. I want you to ride my wave because, hey, what can I tell you? It's an adrenaline rush, man.